Hello and welcome to this video on the Nephilim or giants. I'm LJ. This is a follow-up to my video on who were the sons of God. Many people state the Nephilim or giants are the offspring of the sons of God or angels that mated with human beings. As you may have seen in that video, I argued against the doctrine that angels mated with humans, putting forward my argument why it is actually incorrect, and so removing the ability to interpret the Nephilim or giants as the offspring of this interbreeding. However, the Bible clearly mentions them. So, if they were not a race of hybrid part angel, part human, who and what exactly were they? The first thing we need to do is work out which is the correct word to use, Nephilim or giants. The word Nephilim appears just 3 times in the Hebrew text, once in Genesis 6:4 and twice in Numbers 13:33. Let's start with Genesis 6:4. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were heroes of old, men of renown. NIV. Now the NIV uses the word Nephilim. If we look at the same verse in the KJV, Genesis 6:4, there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. The same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. Now the KJV says that there were giants in the earth. The problem with the NIV's usage of the word Nephilim is that it actually gives the wrong impression. Many people look at the word Nephilim and think that it is an English word that actually means the offspring of the angels and humans. It is often stated when someone is trying to argue the point that there was an angel-human half-breed and that they were the Nephilim, as if the Nephilim would be their English name. But this just isn't the case. The NIV has not actually translated the Hebrew word at all. It simply offers a transliteration which leads to this confusion. The word Nephilim, which incorrectly conjures up images of this offspring, in fact does not actually exist in English. Nephilim is the transliteration of the Hebrew word Han Nephilim, and that's Strong's 5303. It means giants, the name of 2 peoples, one before the flood and one after the flood. Han Nephilim comes from the root word Nephal, which means to fall, cast down, let fail, divide by lot. And it is this definition from the root word and the lack of translation by the NIV, and in fact many other modern translations that people use to say that the Nephilim were the offspring of the fallen angels. It should at least be mentioned that if the angels did interbreed with humans, then it wouldn't be the offspring that had fallen, but the angels who had mated with the humans. We see that Strong's states the actual Hebrew word Han Nephilim is the name of 2 peoples, one before and one after the flood. There is no mention of this being offspring of any sort in the definition. Let alone the offspring of the angels and humans. Strong's Exhaustive Concordance has another definition for the Nephilim. Giants, or Nephil, from Nephal, properly a feller, i.e. a bully or tyrant. Giant. Let's have a look at the definition of the English word giant, and we'll start with the AV1611.com version. A man of extraordinary bulk and stature, giants of mighty bone and bold emprise. A person of extraordinary strength or powers, bodily or intellectual. The judge is a giant in his profession. Let's look at today's definition of the word giant, dictionary.com. Number 1. In folklore, a being with human form but superhuman size, strength, etc. 2. A person or thing of unusually great size, power, importance, etc. Major figure, legend. Giant simply means to be extremely big in size or strength, not a hybrid creature from angel-human reproduction. This, however, does not mean that they were, as the Book of Enoch would state, 450 feet tall, Enoch 7:12, whose stature was each 300 cubits. These devoured all which the labour of men produced, until it became impossible to feed them. A cubit was approximately 18 inches in length. 300 times 18 shared between 12 equals 450 feet. The ark that Noah built was 300 cubits in length. Genesis 6:15. And this is the fashion which thou shalt make of it. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, the breadth of it 50 cubits, and the height of it 30 cubits. This would make these giants the same height as the ark was long. What I need to do is show the height of the giants, and prove that they were not anything of the sort. Giant or giants appears 21 times in 19 verses in the KJV. The other 18 uses all come from the Hebrew ha-Raphaim. That's word 7497, and that means giant, Rapha, Raphaims. Proper name of a people, old race of giants, inhabitants of an area east of the Jordan. Let's start with probably the most well-known giant in the Bible, Goliath. Goliath, that's Strong's word 1555, a Philistine giant. But how tall was Goliath? Was he anywhere near 450 feet tall? 1 Samuel 17:4. And there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines, named Goliath, of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. So 6 cubits plus a span. A span is half cubit. So working that out, he was not far off 10 feet tall. A very tall man. A giant, most definitely. But a long way off from what the book of Enoch would have people believing. Now, Goliath was a Philistine and a Rephaim giant. 1 Samuel 17:8. And he stood and cried unto the armies of Israel, and said unto them, Why are ye come out to set your battle in array? Am I not a Philistine, and ye servants to Saul? Choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me. 1 Samuel 17:23. And he talked with them. Behold, there came up the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, out of the armies of the Philistines, and spake according to the same words, and David heard them. So who were the Philistines? The Philistines were descendants of Ham, Noah's son, Genesis 10:6. And the sons of Ham, Cush, and Mizraim, and Put, and Canaan. And Mizraim begat Ludim, and Anamim, and Lahabim, and Naphtuhim, and Pathrusim, and Casluhim, out of whom came Philistim. So these giants had human lineage back to Ham. Nowhere is there any mention of any interbreeding. There is a verse in Amos that says that the Amorites were the height of cedar trees, and this is used to show that the giants were actually as tall as trees. Amos 2:9. Yet destroyed I the Amorite before them, whose height was like the height of the cedars, and he was strong as the oaks. Yet I destroyed his fruit from above, and his roots from beneath. So were the Amorites actually as tall as cedar trees, or is this simply the use of a simile? Let's have a look at another famous giant from the Bible, Og. Og was a king of the Amorites. Let's have a look at another famous giant from the Bible, Og. Og was a king of the Amorites, Deuteronomy 31:4. And the Lord shall do unto them as he did to Sihon and to Og, kings of the Amorites, and unto the land of them which he destroyed. So Og was a giant and an Amorite. Was he as tall as a cedar tree? Deuteronomy 3:11. For only Og, king of Bashan, remained of the remnants of giants. Behold, his bedstead was a bedstead of iron. Is it not in Rabbath, of the children of Ammon? 9 cubits was the length thereof, and 4 cubits the breadth of it, after the cubit of a man. The word giant in this verse is ha-Raphaim. Og was a Raphaim giant. We do not get the actual height given here for Og, but we do get the length of his bed, 9 cubits, which is 13.5 feet long. Now, this is not total proof that he was shorter than 13.5 feet, but it is far more logical to assume that he wasn't taller than this, and it would be very illogical to say that he would be anywhere near 450 feet tall, or the height of a cedar tree, with such a bed. The verse does not actually mean that Amorites were actually physically the size of trees. We have exaggerated language being used here, the same as for their strength, which is also compared to a tree, an oak tree. But let's go further and let's see who the Amorites were. Amorite comes from the root word emori, that's Strong's 567, perhaps mountain dwellers, a Canaanite tribe. The Amorites were descendants of Canaan, Genesis 10:15, and Canaan begat Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth, and the Jebusite, and the Amorite, and the Girgashite. Og's lineage, as an Amorite, goes back to Canaan. He had human bloodline. Og and Goliath were both Rephaim giants, so it can be argued that this is not the same as the Nephilim giants, and it is the Nephilim giants that were the ones that were really tall, as they were the original giants in the verse in Genesis. Let's have a look at Numbers 13:33 and see if there are any more details that we can extract to help us work out how tall the Nephilim giants were. Numbers 13:33. And there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which came of the giants, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. KJV. Numbers 13:33. We saw the Nephilim there, the descendants of Anak, come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. NIV. Here we do have the usage of the Hebrew word Han Nephilim twice in this verse. The verse also states that the Israelites were comparing themselves to the giants, Nephilim, and saying that they were like grasshoppers to them. This is again used to show that the Nephilim giants were indeed as tall as the book of Enoch would have us believe. But we have already seen in the verse in Amos that the Bible does use exaggerated language, and this is exactly what is being done again in this verse. It is not meaning that they were as small as grasshoppers physically compared to the Nephilim giants. The comparison to the grasshoppers means in strength, not in physical size, or even, as some would say, numerically. And I will show this to be correct. First off, physical size. Some will say that they were as small as grasshoppers compared to the giants, but this is actually just opinion. There is nothing biblically to actually back this claim up. It is simply reading something into the text without any understanding of that text or the context. As I explain what it actually means, with biblical support, it will be clear that physical size is not what is in reference. Secondly, we do have examples of the comparison to grasshoppers numerically being used elsewhere in the Bible. Judges 6:5. For they came up with their cattle and their tents, and they came as grasshoppers for multitude, for both they and their camels were without number, and they entered into the land to destroy it. And again in Judges 7:12. And the Midianites and the Amalekites and all the children of the east lay along the valley like grasshoppers for multitude, and their camels were without number, as the sand by the sea for multitude. Grasshoppers being used clearly to mean numerically large. And another example of this to mean multitude is in Jeremiah 46:23. They shall cut down her forest, saith the Lord, though it cannot be searched, because they are more than the grasshoppers and are innumerable. The Hebrew word used in these incidences is arba, and that's Strong's 697. It means locusts, from its rapid increase, or grasshopper. It is the numerical value that is being referenced. But this isn't what is being referenced in the Numbers passage. The word translated as grasshoppers in the verse in Numbers 13:3 is kahajabim, which is from the root word kaugab, that's Strong's 2284, and it means locusts or grasshoppers. It is the same word as used in Isaiah 40:22, where humans are also called grasshoppers when compared to God. Isaiah 40:22, it is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, that stretcheth out the heavens as a curtain, and spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in. It is the power, the might of God that is being compared in this verse, and it is the same as in Numbers 13:33. The Israelites were saying that the peoples of the land were mightier in strength than them, not in physical size. The Bible says that the land that was to become the land of the Israelites was inhabited by 7 nations greater and mightier than them. Deuteronomy 7:1. When the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it, and hast cast out many nations before thee, the Hittites, and the Girgashites, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou. Now they were certainly more numerous, as this verse tells us greater, Rabbim, which is Strong's 7227, and means abundance. But it was the might that was clearly being contrasted in Numbers 13:33. Mighty, wa'atsumim, and that's Strong's 6099, and it means numerous, mighty, strong. If we go back and continue on in the chapter in Isaiah 40:23, that bringeth the princes to nothing, he maketh the judges of the earth as vanity. Yea, they shall not be planted, yea, they shall not be sown, yea, their stock shall not take root in the earth, and he shall also blow upon them, and they shall wither, and the whirlwind shall take them away as stubble. To whom then will ye liken me, or shall I be equal? Saith the Holy One. Lift up your eyes on high, and behold who hath created these things, that bringeth out their host by number. He calleth them all by names, by the greatness of his might, for that he is strong in power, not one faileth. This is not the Bible saying that God is like a tall giant, that humans were more plentiful. This is the Bible using exaggerated comparison language to compare the might of God to that of humans. And that is exactly what is being said in Numbers 13:33, where the Amalekites are being compared to the Israelites by might, not by size. All that is left to do now is prove that the Nephilim were not 450 feet tall, and in fact were the same height as the Rephaim giants, which we have already seen were anywhere between nearly 10 feet and 13 feet. All the giants were roughly the same size. If we go back to the verse in Numbers 13:33, we get even more information. The verse says the Nephilim were the sons of Anak. Now, who was Anak? Anak, Strong's word 6061, a Canaanite. So Anak was a Canaanite, which means he was a descendant of Canaan, Noah's grandson. So he had a bloodline back to Canaan. Now, it could be argued that this was through his mother and not through his father, and that his father was a fallen angel. But the Bible tells us exactly who his father was. Joshua 14:15, and the name of Hebron before was Kiriath-arba, which Arba was a great man among the Anakims, and the land had rest from war. Joshua 21:11, and they gave them the city of Arba, the father of Anak, which city is Hebron, in the hill country of Judah, with the suburbs thereof round about it. Joshua 15:13. And unto Caleb the son of Jephunneh he gave a part among the children of Judah, according to the commandment of the Lord to Joshua, even the city of Arba, the father of Anak, which city is Hebron. So the children of Anak, as we saw, were the Nephilim. Anak had an earthly human father. He was not the product of an angel mating with his mother. But let's go even deeper. Genesis 14:5, and in the 14th year came Kedorlaomer, and the kings that were with him, and smote the Rephaims in Ashtaroth Karnaim, and the Zuzims in Ham, and the Emims in Shaveh Karithaim. This verse says that Chedorlaomer smote the Rephaims, who we already know are giants. But it also says he smote the Zuzims and the Emims. This is the only use of the word Zumims, so we can't really know much about them. But let's find out who the Emims were. Deuteronomy 2:9. And the Lord said unto me, Distress not the Moabites, neither contend with them in battle, for I will not give thee their land for possession, because I have given Ar unto the children of Lot for a possession. The Emims dwelt therein in times past, a people great and many, and tall as the Anakims, which also were counted giants as the Anakims, but the Moabites call them Emims. So the Emims were giants and as tall as the Anakims, who were the Nephilim referenced in Numbers 13:33. So we know that the Emims are as tall as the Nephilim. Now the word giant in Deuteronomy 2:11 is Raphaim. The Emims were Raphaim giants, but the Moabites called them Emims. Emims is plural of Ema, Terez, Emim, an early Canaanitish tribe. If we continue on in Deuteronomy, we find another tribe mentioned. Deuteronomy 2:19. And when thou comest nigh over against the children of Ammon, distress them not, nor meddle with them, for I will not give thee of the land of the children of Ammon any possession, because I have given it unto the children of Lot for a possession. That also was accounted a land of giants. Giants dwelt therein in old time, and the Ammonites called them Zamzumims, a great people, and many, and tall as the Anakims. But the Lord destroyed them before them, and they succeeded them, and dwelt in their stead. Zamzumim, Strong's Word 2157, another name for the Rephaim. So the Zamzumims were Rephaim giants also, but they were called Zamzumims by the Ammonites. The Zamzumims and the Emims were both Rephaim giants, but they were called different names by different peoples. They were both referenced as being as tall as the Anakims. The Anakims, as we know, were the Nephilim giants. So the Rephaim giants were as tall as the Nephilim giants, and we know that Og and Goliath were both Rephaim giants, and neither of those were anywhere near 450 feet tall. So the Nephilim giants would be the same size as Og and Goliath. There is no scripture to base the belief that the Nephilim were as tall as the Book of Enoch says, or that they are the offspring of angel-human breeding. When we look into the information given by the Bible, we find that the Nephilim had human heritage, and that although being very tall, were not anywhere near the kind of height that so many people believe they were. The giants in the Bible were not the height of those in the Book of Enoch. The Bible itself does not support the Book of Enoch. If you have to go beyond the Bible to get your doctrine, then your doctrine is not biblical. Thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been useful and informative. If you have any comments, please leave them on Facebook or YouTube, or send me a message through email. I look forward to seeing you on another video. Thank you very much. God bless.